Hi everyone, this is Jean with Rebel Yell Rising. Welcome back to your weekly tarot card reading. This is for July 23rd to July 29th. And if you're new to the channel, normally what I do is I meditate and pray. And what I do is I usually, do a reading for myself real quick, asking, what's the focus for the week ahead or the day. Or sometimes I ask, what's the message? And if, for example, the message is, to take action in some part of your life, then I will do the reading for you guys, for everybody else, with the intention of, how can I take action, right? How can I propel myself forward? So this week, I think it's turning out similar to last week, and I'm actually kind of liking this method. I did the reading for myself first, and I got this message here, which I'm going to go over. But I think instead of, starting from the beginning and doing one for you guys, I'm going to keep the reading that I got for myself because I think it applies to, the collective. And then I'll draw an additional card for each one of these. So first, this is the Wicca Oracle card deck, and it's by Los Scarabeo, and I absolutely love it. It's one of the few decks, I think it's the only deck with no writing on it, and it's very, very intuitive, but every now and then I still do use the guidebook, especially for decks that I use infrequently. So again, as I was shuffling, the intention for this reading was, what do we need to focus on for this week? Starting July 23rd, it's a very powerful week with the new moon going into Leo. The sun is in Leo. I believe Mars is in Leo with the new moon. The moon is in Leo. So it's just a very, very powerful week, and I'm not an astrologer, so just depending on, where you have Leo in your chart, it's going to affect you in that aspect of your house, of your life. Whichever house Leo is in is where it's going to affect your life the most, and also whichever planets that you have in Leo. So it's interesting that I drew this card first. This card is about reflection. And I love that there's a giant moon in this card. It really kind of emphasizes the new moon energy for us. And it's pushing us into this week. The new moon is a time for new beginnings. But what this is saying is to not jump into any particular course of action just yet. Take some time and really reflect on what's been going on in your life and which direction you want to keep going. Take some time off from, social activities, from friends, because sometimes it's really hard to separate what you want versus what, you've been told you want. For example, you're a little kid and everybody says, oh, pancakes are delicious. I love pancakes. Oh, here, you're going to love pancakes. So, as a small child, you grow up thinking, I love pancakes. But for some reason, you never finish the pancakes. Well, maybe not until you're a teenager or something, you realize that, in fact, you actually don't like pancakes. It's because your parents told you that pancakes were good, and your friends told you that pancakes were good, and everybody seems to love pancakes. So you think you love pancakes, but it takes a while until you're actually just, sitting down in the kitchen eating pancakes on your own without all the commotion that you realize, I really don't like pancakes, actually, even though everyone else seems to. So that's kind of what this card is saying, is kind of detach a little from the friends and, take a step back from, family, and just take some time to be on your own and reflect. Do I really want to be a doctor, or is that because this is what I'm told I should do? Do I really enjoy road trips, or am I just putting on a happy front for, my family or friends. So it's not about taking immediate action with this new moon. And it's probably because this new moon and the energy and all of the energy that's in this Leo season is so powerful and strong. It's sort of like you want to make sure you're starting off at the right direction. And you can only know that if you take some time and think about it first. This next card, these are the fates or the wise ones. And what this card is telling us is that our fate, the grand picture, the overall plan is already kind of set in stone. The start point, the end point, all the major focuses, all the major events have already sort of been contracted out. What we do is we are responsible for our day-to-day decisions. Do I turn left? Do I get off on this exit? I'm speaking metaphorically. Do I leave this person? Do I continue this relationship? Do I show kindness to this stranger? That's what we're responsible for. And I know July has been a really, really rough month for everybody, it seems. And this is sort of a reminder that we're sort of being carried along on this wave. And we can fight the current, we can fight the riptide as, we're being pulled further away from the shore. And yeah, it's scary, we're terrified because the shore is our safety. But we're being reminded with this card for this week to stop fighting and to go with the flow. Don't fight the current because it's stronger than us and it's going to take us where it's going and we're along for the ride. We can't control the current, we can't change it, we can't force it, and we're definitely not going to win if we fight it. The best thing to do is to let go, relax, and conserve your energy by going with it. So that's part of the message for this week. And the last card we have here, this really reminds me of the Temperance card in the Wild Unknown tarot deck. This talks about the combination of fire and water. Now, some people say that fire and water kind of cancel each other out. I completely disagree. You just look at a steam engine. It's the fire creating the steam in conjunction with the water that makes it so powerful, right? And what this is saying is like, this is you. There's this boiling water full of energy, right? Because that's what is making the water boil. It's the energy. It's heating up. All those little atoms and molecules or whatever are starting to vibrate really, really fast because they're heating up. And that's when they, break down into steam. There's this bubbling energy that is like getting ready to boil inside of you, right? Propelling you into a certain direction. But it goes along with this first card in that you don't want to just jump the gun and start running off into a direction without having the recipe, without having the plan. In this cauldron, they might be cooking soup or, making a brew for medicine. But either one of those takes a recipe. You don't just, well, you can, but you just don't throw ingredients into the pot without knowing which ingredients, how much of which ingredient, and in what order, and for how long to cook them. So you're being asked this week to really come up with a good plan, a recipe, an algorithm for your life, for these next steps that you want to take. Keeping in mind that try not to include your whole life in that recipe, right? But the recipe for today, the recipe for this project, the recipe for this week, but not, well, if I cook this meal, and this is a metaphor, if I cook this meal, I'll have food to last me for 50 years. So what the theme is for this week is really about taking some time to think and to realize what your soul is calling for. And that in knowing what your soul is calling for, it might be easier for you to go with the flow and to not fight the riptide. When you realize that it's easier to float with the current, and that eventually, as scared as you might be, eventually you're going to be let down on the beach somewhere, you can use that time that you're just relaxing and on the current to come up with an algorithm, a recipe for how you want to get to where you want to go. Take the time, take the downtime to rest and plan out what you're going to do when it's time for you to start running. But remember that you don't spend so much time worrying about, what if I mess up the recipe? What if I mess up the plan? Then in 2 years, my investments are going to be fruitless. Don't waste your time and your energy with that sort of thinking, because otherwise you might never get going, or you're going to be so concentrated in the future that you're going to not actually pay attention to creating and making that recipe or that brew today. All right, so now that you guys understand what the theme is for that week, I'm going to, give me a second, I'm going to see which cards. Okay. It's funny, I think the Wild Unknown deck here is calling to me. So I'm just going to pick one card from this deck. And I apologize for the glare. Here we've got the Tower. So I'm sure many of you guys are aware of the Tower and what Tower represents. So in the metaphors that I was just giving, that Tower would almost be the realization that you're swept up in the riptide, right? And how you deal with the Tower is by accepting that you're caught up in the riptide and going with the current. So whatever is happening in your life, especially this week, it seems like there's going to be a lot of having the rug pulled out from underneath you, but it's to get you on the right trajectory. So for some of you that are gardeners, or if you've ever seen, oh my gosh, what is it? Karate Kid, where Mr. Miyagi is, doing the little bonsai trees. So that's the message here. It's just a little reminder for you guys that the Tower isn't disaster. It's not something to fear. All it is in this case, and I feel like especially for this week, is it's trimming the dead branches. It's pruning off the dead so that new life can grow. You see how only a little bit of it is being hit by the lightning, but you still have this very tall, very strong foundation, and all these leaves and branches are very healthy looking and white. But it's as if the tree was maybe starting to grow like crooked, or for some reason, only this top part of the tree needed to be pruned. Only these branches needed to be clipped and whatever the other word is, trimmed, sorry, so that it could start growing healthier and stronger. And that is what the message is for this week, is that we are not going to be completely knocked off our game, but some things, some parts of our lives, some relationships, again, I feel like it's really, wherever Leo is in your natal chart, is, areas of our life where things are going to start to be trimmed from our life. And it might hurt, it might be shocking, it might not be. You might have seen it coming, and this could just be the final culmination of everything that had been happening in the beginning of July. All that chaos and turmoil, I feel like it's probably been coming to a head, and this is it. Like, whatever was shaky in your life, right? That was the beginning of the sickness, if you will, like a tree, right? And now whatever sick branches and leaves in your life, were there, the dead parts, it's going to fall away. It's going to be trimmed. So don't fear the tower. Don't fear the change. Don't fear the loss. But just know that whatever aspect of your life is trimmed away from you, whittled away, that you are shedding, it's so that new life can grow. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the message. All right, guys, I want to say thank you so much for joining me again for this week. I really do appreciate all the new likes, the shares, the comments, and the subscribes. You guys are amazing. And keep in touch. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I love communicating with you guys. Thank you all so much. Bye.